Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of the Brett and Matt Show. As always, he's Brett, I'm Matt, and so Super Bowl 50 has been complete. Your world champions are the Denver Broncos. So both Brett and I were wrong in our picks. I don't remember what Brett predicted as a score, but I predicted 27-13, and I was way off. So. Um,
I predicted a weird one. I think it was 23-19. So we were both right, I guess, in that it was going to be sort of low scoring ish, like not a ton of points scored overall. Guess there was that.
it's true, and at first I just thought, okay, so the game starts off right, and obviously Denver's defense just right away kind of just unleashed, and actually, Denver actually got a field goal, I think out of their first drive. Owen Daniels got, I think, the first pass from Peyton Manning. He also got crushed on another pass for Peyton Manning.
So did Demarius Thomas on the underneath route, got crushed from Kuechly on a pass from Manning. I mean, we mentioned that obviously already like 2 or 3 times just in the first 2 minutes of the show that Manning got his guys crushed a couple of times. And he had, honestly, I know they won the game, but if we're being real here, his game was really, really poor.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks that if they were on the Denver Broncos, I think they would have won the game still. Like that defense, actually I was looking at something and they actually stack up really, really well, like as like an all-time great defense. Arguably like arguably like a top 15 defense of all time. Like just if you're just going off numbers rank, they 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 they're pretty darn good. And I'm just so sick of betting against the number one defense. One of these years I'm going to learn my lesson that I shouldn't do that. It ends badly. A couple of years ago, me and a bunch of guys at work made a lunch bet, which by the way, I now owe my coworker lunch, so I'm a little upset about that. But we made a lunch bet that this was the year the Seahawks and the Broncos played, right? And you had number one defense against arguably by numbers the greatest offense of all time, right? Like that offense was crazy good.
It was before Peyton started going downhill too. That was his.
And the number one defense just made arguably the greatest offense of all time look terrible. So I should have learned my lesson then. And this time I didn't bet on the number one defense coming through, and I thought that the Panthers being the better overall team, like more complete, I thought that they would have the edge, and I just thought Peyton Manning was going to cost his team too much, and it turns out he didn't.
He didn't. I mean, he got away, I think, with a couple. I think Josh Norman almost had a couple of them, and he did throw that one directly to the defensive end who just dropped in coverage. I don't know what Peyton saw on that one, but thankfully, for him, and what had been happening all season is, you mentioned it, that defense just tore up that offensive line, especially DeMarcus Ware, Von Miller, and I think it was Malik Jackson or something like that up front. They did a number on that offensive line, which we kind of mentioned, before the game in our preview that, you took Michael Orr and I took Reimers, the right tackle, but they were going to have big games if they were going to help Carolina score, and that didn't happen.
One of them had a good game. Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned a little bit about the pass rush, but if you look at how good, I mean, even like the interior line, like they didn't allow gaps to form and allow Cam to like run up the middle or anything. Like, they really actually kind of, allowed, Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware to kind of do their thing, and just, oh man, just, I mean, I don't even know what to say. I mean, it seemed like Wade Phillips routinely, actually I felt like did the opposite, right? So in the AFC Championship game, he did something a little different, and he would routinely drop like 8 guys in coverage, and Tom Brady had trouble like throwing the ball down the field because there's so many people in coverage. And now this one, complete opposite, right? Like he was bringing like tons of pressure all game. Pretty much the old adage, like I'm gonna blitz you and you're gonna beat me throwing the ball, right? And Cam just did not do good at all.
Yeah, I mean, the first couple drives, I mean, you saw it right away. Like pressure was getting there, but there wasn't anywhere to go, so we had to stay in the pocket. Which again is something that we mentioned in the preview, is that if you're going to beat him, make him beat you from the pocket. And he threw a couple of them real high. I mean, if that's where he misses high because he throws off his back foot. You know, he doesn't really get like the standard, follow through on his passes where he's like kind of stepping through and the motion. So he throws off his back foot a lot. So when he misses, he does tend to miss high, and that happened a lot at the beginning. He did have, a couple drops as well from receivers. I think there were like 4 or 5 throughout the game, including a couple from Kotri, including the really big one that they challenged, that you and I both thought probably should have been called a catch, wasn't. And then I think it was like the next play or like 2 plays later, that was that Von Miller strip sack for the touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, that was a huge play. I mean, for the longest time, that touchdown was the only touchdown, right? I mean, it just seemed like, a part of me thought, out Denver, they're letting Carolina hang around, like, Carolina's gonna go to halftime, maybe come up with some sort of adjustment to, kind of stop the pass rush a little bit, and just, they obviously didn't. Cam looked like he may have gotten hurt at some point. I mean, I don't care how big and strong you are, but he took some shots. Yeah, no question. He took a beating. I'm trying to think. I mean, the one bizarre play, and I think it was in the first half, the punt return, right? Actually, I think I saw it was like the longest punt return in Super Bowl history, and I was baffled. Like I thought, I was like, he's gonna fair catch it, right? And so the guy, barely nudges him, thinking he fair caught it, and he just takes off down the side or up the field, and I'm just like, wait, what? He should have gotten crushed.
He should have. Yeah, that should have been potentially one of the dumbest plays on a punt return that you could do, but just getting crushed without calling for a catch with 2 guys there. And turned into, like you mentioned, one of the really big plays. Hell of a play by, oh my God, it's number 97, I believe, on Carolina to take the angle that he took and trip him up before he scored. I think the defense held. Was that the possession that they went for it on 4th, got it, but then there was like holding or something, so they had to kick a field goal?
Yep.
Yeah, so, I mean, even still, I mean, to get the 3 points there, considering how poorly, and how little Denver's offense moved the ball, like that punt return was also a massive play.
Yeah, it really was. And, we did say in our preview that special teams might have an impact, and there's no doubt. I mean, that was a really big play.
Ted Ginn never really got going on any of his returns, or Corey Philly Brown, or whoever else they had on like kickoffs. Kickoffs were pretty useless because they all just were unreturnable. But missed field goal from Carolina.
That was big.
Was a big one. So I mean, it had an impact, obviously negatively, but had that been a made field goal, going into the drive before Cam's last fumble, it would have only been a 3-point game, and then that could have changed the whole outlook as far as like how you're feeling as like a Panthers fan. That you don't need the touchdown, like a field goal is at least good enough to make it to overtime. But he did miss that one, so they still needed to get the touchdown.
Yeah, and I mean, it was a defensive game, right? I mean, there was a lot of punting from both sides going on.
Ton of 3-and-outs. You look at Denver's strategy for this game, especially late. It was almost like, you know what? We've got the lead, and we trust our defense. Peyton, you're not going to screw it up. They ran the ball like 3 straight times on some of their drives and just punted. It was like, just punt on 3rd down. Like what's the point of even doing this right now? Even on like some of the 3rd downs, it was like they line up in shotgun and then just run like a draw play or like an off tackle play. And, they were completely content on just letting their defense win, which was a pretty strong strategy. I mean, it ended up working.
Yeah, I mean, if you think, there were a couple times where I actually thought that Carolina's defense, there were times where I felt like CJ Anderson kind of was gashing them a little bit. I mean, it wasn't super consistent, but I mean, he did rip off some pretty long runs. A lot longer runs than it seemed like Carolina was. Carolina, their best runs, I felt like, were coming. Well, the one Tolbert had a nice run. They fumbled the ball. Otherwise, I mean, it felt like there were a couple times Cam had to take off, and that seemed to be the only way they were getting production on the ground.
Yeah, he had a couple decent runs. He did take that hit, I think, on the sideline on one of them that he was upset about. He was also really upset about when he got hit in the end zone when he was throwing a pass away.
Yes, he was very upset about that.
Threw a little tantrum while he was laying on the ground. I thought was honestly a pretty funny reaction. But I mean, that was just kind of the way the game went. Like they did do a really good job, Denver's defense, that is, of stopping the run, and then making Cam try to beat him through the air with those receivers, and it didn't happen. I mean, he missed some throws, they had some drops, and it was a great defensive game plan. Which for Wade Phillips, you got to feel good for the guy, considering he was just relieved of his duties like last year, and to pick it up and then lead a team to a Super Bowl, one of the elite defenses. Feel good for the guy.
Yeah, and actually, to be honest, I've actually always kind of liked Wade Phillips. I don't know if he's necessarily a good head coach, but I think he's one of those guys as a coordinator that's really, really good. I also think it's kind of funny that have you ever seen he goes on social media and kind of trolls teams on Twitter? I think that's kind of funny. Yeah, so okay, so I mean we discussed a little bit about the game. The big point in the game was I couldn't believe that fumble that Cam Newton had, and he didn't go for the ball. Like, he made a move like he was thinking about going for it, and then backed out of it. And that drove me nuts, because I can't imagine not. It was still a game then. Like, by chance, if you happen to recover, like, you can't. I can't believe that someone who claims to be a competitor at his level, and he's even said it in his, like, I saw something today that said that he hates losing so much. If you hate losing so much, how did you not dive on the football?
Yeah, that's a good point. He said that he thought he was going to have to, like, contort, or his knee or his leg was going to get twisted up if he dove on it. And if you actually go back and watch the replay, you can almost see what he says, because he almost in his, like, freak, like, just trying to go and grab the ball while it was on the ground. He almost overstrided, and then he would have almost needed to just fallen instead of dove. So if he just would have, like, taken, like, a shorter stride to the ball, he could have probably dove with his legs out without them being underneath them. But he did take a pretty big stride, and then the ball was a lot closer than he expected. So, I mean, I can almost see what he was saying, but at the same time, if that's what it takes, just fall on the damn ground. Thomas Davis played this game with stitches and screws all up his arm with a massive cast on. And if you listen to all their teammates, Greg Olsen came out and supported him, and some other guys did as well. Like, no one on that team obviously is going to call Cam out. And I think he did a pretty good job all season, but at the same time, in that moment, like, when you see that ball, it's pretty inexcusable
it should just be instinctive, right? Like, it shouldn't be a thought. Like, at least it wouldn't be for me. Like, I would see it and I would go for it.
You might get crushed. You might end up getting hurt. Somebody else online I saw made a comment that I don't know if that was similar to the play at all, that RG3, tore his leg up on. Different field and some different circumstances there, of course, but Drew Brees dove onto a ball, and that's how he hurt his shoulder when he was in San Diego. So, I mean, yeah, you're going to get hurt, but or there's a chance that you might get hurt. But in that situation for like a Super Bowl where you don't get that every single season, like he's like, oh, we'll be back. And that's great to have that confidence, like, and that team is good enough to be back. But there's no guarantees. That could have been his one and only shot to win a Super Bowl, and to not come up big in that situation, I think, is very disappointing. For a league MVP.
It's true. There are no guarantees about getting back to that game. Definitely not. So, I mean, we discussed the game. I mean, obviously, the Super Bowl MVP is Von Miller. The guy was a force, to say the least. Thought he had, okay. I thought he had. You look at like the AFC Championship game, and now you look at this game. He says he wants to be the highest paid defensive player in the league. Probably should be. I did not doubt J.J. Watt, so I just want to clarify that right now. I'm really happy for Von Miller. And do you think apparently Denver's going to franchise tag him, because I don't know where they think they're going to find this money, but
yeah, that's probably the smart move, is to franchise him. At least in like as a holding spot, so you can kind of negotiate, but they got to figure out some other positions first. The quarterback spot. I mean, Peyton's probably retiring. I think Osweiler's a restricted free agent. Both the middle linebackers, one of the defensive ends. I mean, they've got a lot.
they got some
a lot
pieces
of other pieces. And those inside linebackers, in Trevathan and Marshall, were I think on their rookie deals where they're both making like $600,000 or whatever it was this year.
Oh, come to Green Bay. Won't happen because Ted Thompson won't do anything, but I can dream.
Give us one of them, Ted. Give us one. But they're not going to come at that $600,000 mark anymore, so they're going to have to increase their pay, the defensive ends pay, and then they still got to find a quarterback. It's a lot of pieces that they're going to have to try to find out. So
yes.
Franchising Von before you invest heavily, at least right away. Maybe you can franchise him, like I said, hold it, and then come up with a long-term deal afterwards is probably the best bet.
That's a very good point. So with that, I mean,
wait.
Oh, go ahead.
I just want to say, how often did we hear Kenwan Short's name last on Sunday?
I didn't hear his name at all for a stat. I heard him. He was the reason that that holding penalty got called, though, that they would have picked up the fourth down. He was the player that got into the backfield, was being held.
That was probably his biggest play. That was like the only time that we really hurt him. So I want to give a shout out to my guy that I mentioned, Evan Mathis, left guard, for also having a great game.
Yeah, I'd say he had a hell of a game. I mean, no question about it. You were right on that. I was right on one thing. I said Talib might match up with Greg Olsen. I was right.
That did happen at least at one time.
At least once.
But that was a weird game, I think, for Talib, because he had a couple plays where he had like a knockdown, like Greg Olsen playing another one, but then he also gave up some big plays. Also had like 2 personal fouls, which were really stupid.
Also was being a dirtbag.
He literally threw a dude by the face mask, and this is a guy who had already poked a guy in the eyes earlier this year.
I don't like the guy, but he's a really good football player. But I really don't like the guy.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, he is good, but he is kind of a scumbag. And it's interesting because under the proposed rules by the commissioner, he would have been ejected from that game after throwing the guy by the helmet, because that would have been a second personal foul.
That's a good point. So with that, I mean, we gotta discuss a little bit about what everyone in the sports world is discussing about. So obviously Cam Newton didn't play good, didn't exactly take to answering the media very well, and actually stormed out of his press conference. So I gotta ask, Brett, how do you feel about this?
Obviously I understand being upset, being angry because you did just lose the Super Bowl. I have no issues with him obviously not being happy, and the people that are like, oh, like, you lost the game, but come out and um, be like what they say is like a good loser, right? Like, you didn't see that picture a lot of him and Peyton shaking hands after the game, and he's like smiles and like congratulating him. Then,
Yep.
he didn't storm off the field beforehand, which I think Peyton did when they lost to the Saints. Peyton didn't shake hands even. I didn't hear a lot of issues and a lot of sports writers like kind of condemning Peyton at that time.
It's true. To be fair, Peyton also didn't walk out in the media either. Like,
and that's probably why. I mean, the people in the media, that they get more upset, I think, when you do stuff that harms like their storyline than when you do other sorts of things. Like, they condemn you for almost like the wrong sorts of things. Sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes they get it right. Obviously, not everybody does, but I don't know, man. What are your thoughts? I gotta collect mine here for a second.
I have a beef with it a little bit. So if Cam, just wins the MVP of the league, right? He is going to be a face of the NFL. Okay, first off, your other teammates, white, black, veterans, rookies, they all stayed and answered questions. Like, you're the league MVP. Like, where do you think that you can just storm off and, I mean, I understand that you lost the game. I understand that, you only had like 15 minutes to collect your thoughts and you have to go out to this BS press conference, whatever you want to call it. But that bothered me. And then the other part that bothered me, there have been other quarterbacks that obviously lost the Super Bowl, right? None of them, stormed out of their press conferences. Like, they all had to sit there and answer the hard questions, some harder than others. Like, I mean, how would you feel being Russell Wilson last year and asking, oh, well, why did you throw the ball? Well, what were you thinking? Like, what was going through your mind when you saw it get picked off? What do you think was going through my mind? Like, okay, like, it kind of bugs me because he's the league MVP. Like, if you really are going to elevate yourself to be the face of the biggest sports industry in the United States, like, I think you need to handle yourself a little better. I'm not saying like you can't be upset about it and like you can't answer questions. I mean, yeah, you can answer some questions with no or just like short answers, but even guys like Tom Brady, when they lose, when Aaron Rodgers loses, when Russell Wilson loses, like, they at least like put some thought into their answers, even though they're clearly not happy, obviously. And it just comes off bad to me because the whole year Cam was, busy dabbing and showboating and, doing and just having fun. Like, I don't have a problem with that. But then when you lose, you should have to, like, lose with some dignity, right? Like, don't be like a classless jerk. And all you did was you just fed all your critics ammunition, in my opinion. Like, they already are going to find a reason to dislike you for having fun. Well, then when you go and you do these kind of things, like, it just makes their like ammo like that much easier to throw at you. And that's just my little rant on it. I honestly, in the large spectrum of things, it's not a huge deal. I'm not going to condemn or hate Cam Newton for it, but I hope he treats it as a learning experience and it helps him down the future.
Well, I mean, he's already, I think, kind of defended himself in his actions and some of the other words that he said today. But, like Jim Rome mentioned, he's like, like, as far as he was concerned, he thought his presser, like Cam's presser, was weak. And you mentioned the same thing that you did. If you're going to celebrate when you win, when you lose, face the music. Hey, you lost, but I mean, you still got to go through. It's in your contract. I mean, there's other things, responsibilities that you have to do and go through. And to not do that, then I mean, it does show how sort of a loser you are. Now, don't get me wrong; they're all very competitive. They all probably are for the most part. Honestly, pretty sort of losers, but they at least go through, with the motions. Again, though, I mean, Bill Belichick doesn't always give the greatest of pressers, especially after a loss sometimes.
That's a very good point, actually. That's a very good point.
I don't know if he's ever stormed off, but his answers are sometimes short and terse, and he doesn't, really delve into like explaining things. And then another thing and another component of this is, I think, is other than it being part of his responsibility, a lot of us, we do hold them up to be like these sort of, we put athletes, I think, on a pedestal too much. But we got to realize, that they are, just other human beings as well. They're not these, infallible role models that are perfect. They definitely have their own flaws and everything like that. So, like it's understandable, but it is kind of disappointing. And you can't compare like everybody the same because they all grew up, right? So we mentioned, guys like Russell Wilson, and I think his situation last year would have been way harder than Cam's.
That would have been way harder. Okay, no offense, Cam Newton, but you pretty much got your butt kicked the whole game. That had to be way harder. I can't imagine throwing that pick in that situation and then being like, oh, great, now I get to go get asked about why I did this.
So it is interesting though, because if you would have sat there and answered the questions and like answered them either truthfully or dishonestly, it doesn't really matter. Like what we would have been saying if you'd have been like, if he's like, oh well, we went out there and honestly my offensive tackles got their ass kicked and my receivers dropped a couple of catchable passes, but I'll be like, what the hell, Cam? Like, what's your problem? So you sometimes in those situations you can't even be honest. But at least you got to sit there and answer them somehow. But is that really better than not answering them at all? Like if you just throw out like cliche after cliche and be like, oh, we lost as a team sort of deal, or I didn't play well enough.
That's a good point.
I don't know. We'll probably forget about that. Well, I don't know. Cam seems to be pretty polarizing. People might not forget about this for a while.
That's true. I gotta say that I think my reaction probably would have been a lot more like Josh Norman's. I probably would have been pretty freaking devastated, but that's just me.
Oh yeah, look, like sitting there like watching the celebration and crying.
Yeah, there's no question about it. If I would have ever got to a situation like that where you reach the pinnacle of something like that, there's no way. Like nope, that would have been me.
Honestly, no matter what ended up happening in that game, if I would have been in it, I would have been crying tears of something, tears of joy, anger, whatever. But I would have cried regardless. I'm a big baby.
I'm a big baby. So that said, so the night before, obviously the NFL honors happened, and as I mentioned, Cam Newton was named the NFL MVP. Little bit of a surprise, one I was not expecting. J.J. Watt winning Defensive Player of the Year, and Brett, I thought you said Luke Kuechly was going to win it. That's what I said was going to happen, but
that's what you said. I said Luke Kuechly was a very good option. There are a couple of others that
he's been a good option for the last how many years?
He's won one.
Oh, he did? Never mind.
Yeah. I think he won it the year that Watt didn't win it in the last 4 years. Because Watt's won 3 of the last 4, and I think Kuechly won the other one.
Are you sure?
I think so.
That wasn't like Terrell Suggs?
I don't think so. Yeah.
I need to look this up. NFL. Maybe I'm just on drugs. I don't know.
Oh, Lawrence Taylor. Going back. Yeah, he won it in 2013. So Watt won it.
Okay.
Won it, and then Watt won the last 2.
Oh, there you go. He won that. Marcus Peters won Defensive Rookie of the Year. I'm just thinking of these guys off the top of my head. Todd Gurley, who, not going to mention any names, but someone I was with said that is ridiculous that he won the award, and I was like, what is wrong with you? The guy had all these yards, and he played in like 8 games. Actually, I don't know. I made that up, but
I think it was like 10 or 12. But was that Kyle?
Yes, it was. Just like, this is garbage. I was like, what are you talking about?
Well, we
Um,
can tell you who it wasn't going to be, all right? It's either that or Winston, probably.
famous Jameis, baby. He had to be right there. I can tell you it was not going to be Melvin Gordon, who should not have been a first round pick, but that's a different story. Really disappointed with him. Let's see. Eric Berry won comeback player of the year. I was
Very
definitely happy for
deserving.
him. Hmm.
Very deserving. The comeback player of the year award for me sometimes really pisses me off because it's like they came back from sucking. You know, it was like, oh, well, Jay Cutler had a down year and then came back and played better. That's a stupid way to give somebody an award. Congratulations, you sucked last year and you didn't this year. Obviously, Eric Berry's situation is totally different, where he battled cancer, and then to come back and play as well as he did, be a Pro Bowler, I believe. That is, I think, what the award should be for. People that had to come back from something devastating other than their shitty, awful play the year before, which I know the award's been given out for that before. So
Hmm.
very, very happy for Eric Berry.
The Rodgers to Rodgers Hail Mary was play of the year. Actually, the second time Aaron Rodgers has won play of the year. The other time was the fourth down touchdown to beat the Bears to send the Packers to the playoffs. He threw it to Randall Cobb. That's kind of neat.
Got a flair for the dramatic.
Yeah, got the flair for trying to give me a heart attack. Let's see, and then are there any other? The Walter Payton Award went to Anquan Bolton.
Excellent. He's a good guy too. That's for the like man of the year. Like, what is that award?
Service. Yeah, yep.
Okay. And it's pretty cool too because he got to get that award, in his home stadium.
He did. Okay, you gotta touch on one thing. This actually, I'm not making fun. This is pretty cool. So, did you see at the beginning of the game they had like all the MVPs from the previous Super Bowls like come out? And
Yeah.
what are you laughing about, Brett?
Just what are you gonna say?
I was just gonna say I thought it was kind of funny that Tom Brady walked out and got booed.
That's why I was laughing. I knew where you were going with that. I knew.
Oh man, that was funny.
I'm sure he doesn't really care one way or the other.
Probably not. Although it was almost as funny as when Denver scored what essentially was the game-sealing touchdown when C.J. Anderson ran it in, and Eli Manning they took a screenshot of Eli Manning. He just did not look excited at all.
Like happy for his
What
brother.
the hell? Like, are you serious? Like, how do you not? I would have been freaking out for my brother. Are you serious?
Everyone knows Peyton is a way better quarterback than Eli's ever been. But Eli could always say, who's got more rings, right? He had 2 to Manning's 1, or Peyton's 1. Now they both have 2, and Eli can't hold anything over Peyton's head. Peyton has got every single argument at best, or at worst, and then he can just tie the Super Bowl argument. So maybe I could almost kind of see that he's like, shit, now I don't have something over Peyton. But at the same time, like, how was there no emotion? He just kind of looked like he wanted to throw up a little bit.
Yeah, he didn't look happy at all. I don't know why. It was really weird.
That was pretty funny. Something that this game, by the way, did do for our Pick'em League is move you into a tie with Nathan. And because of tiebreakers and whatnot, I think he actually technically won the Pick'em League.
You know what? I'll give it up to him. That's you know what? He earned it. He earned it. No question about it.
It doesn't matter. He gets the same prize everyone else. Like all 10 of you that played all year get the same damn thing. Still got to make one of those, by the way.
I've been busy. You might want to just maybe get a generic picture or something.
I probably will. Yeah.
Because I've been really busy with crap lately. It seems like, but so we have an exciting announcement. Now,
we do.
We won't be able to, share any video or probably anything while we're there. But me and Brett will be attending the NFL scouting combine.
Yeah, we got Saturday the 27th, so that'll be the quarterbacks and receivers. The skilled player kind of day. That's probably the day that most everyone I think watches or cares about the most for, because that's the sort of drills that these guys are set up for, is like the super athletes. And they tend to be the running backs, receivers. Corners probably almost always run. No, receivers probably run just as fast as the corners, but it should be pretty fun. I'm excited. Gonna try to come up with a way to somehow get some sort of video capturing system in there.
But yeah, I mean, we're both excited. We both really get into the drafts. I've always wanted to go. Never thought I'd actually have an opportunity to go. So this is kind of a big deal, and I'm definitely stoked to be able to be a part of this thing.
I am as well. And that's obviously a pretty good segue too, because now with the season over, it is officially draft season. So we'll probably start doing some preview stuff on that, maybe some team outlooks and everything else. What team needs going into the offseason, free agency, and all that kind of stuff coming up. So it's a year-round thing, man. I'm always excited for like every part of the year because there's usually something going on.
Definitely. So with that said, I mean, is there anything else you'd like to discuss, Brett?
No, sir.
All right. Well, I don't know. We'll have to think of some topics for next week, but we'll figure something out. Maybe we'll start on a preview of some kind, or maybe some NBA talk. But we'll figure something out. So until next week.